There are powers on Earth too hidden to be seen, and conspiracies too vast to comprehend. For years, the world has seen fact distorted, reality manipulated, and the truth concealed. Join the Pierre Sebac podcast to uncover the real meanings behind ancient aliens and their symbolism.
Hi, this is Pierre Sebac, Unlocking the Keys to the Mysteries. Now today I want to look at a subject called Numismatology. It's a very difficult and a very complex subject, and I've done a lot of work into this, but I've only really sketched out the outline in my book Holographic Culture. So I just want to give you the basic outline. Now, numismatology is the study of coins. Now this is important within the occult and the arcane tradition because the coin symbolizes a weight. Now the weights link in both in terms of measurements, which were used to survey the temple and to work out distances between sacred sites, and these sacred sites were all aligned to heaven. And quite a bit of research has been done into this by researchers such as Mark Flynn and his twin brother as well. But there's been no research done into the study of weights and how they correspond to angelic vessels. And indeed, the weight systems were used to represent the different types of opening wheels. And the different opening wheels, which were related to the vehicles of the angels, were differentiated and were categorized. And so therefore, this is a very important study to understand how they represented the sons of the boats and the different types of vessels used to symbolize the sons of the boat, which were essentially angels. So first of all, I'm going to go into the etymology. Now, numus, a coin, is morphologically from the Greek root nomisma, which means a current coin. In other words, a coin which was in current usage. Now, the Latin word numus, a coin, is a close cognate of numen, which is a deity. And it's interesting because numen, a deity, obviously within the Dogon mythology, is very closely related etymologically to Nomo, which was a fish god. And again, those who were born from Sirius were represented with a fish or a serpent. So the coin and the deity is important, and this obviously within Christianity links into the payment of sin through a sacrifice. The coin is a type of weight, but again the votive dish is symbolized as a type of angelic vessel, and this is found throughout the saucer cults throughout the Middle East and throughout the classical world. Now, numismatology, it's based upon a numerical tradition, and so we find that there's this relationship between the Hebrew word sifra, numeral, and seraph. Now this essentially is recording the Pythagorean cult of numbers. As I've said before in other videos, Pythagoras was the speaker of the serpent, the speaker of the python. The python in this context is a signifier of the seraphim. Serapha fire, Sofa for watcher. So he was a speaker of the watchers. And as I have discussed before in my other videos, there is a compartmentalization between the human tradition, which were the cherubim, the proto-human tradition, which was signified in the Greek word as the Euclidean tradition, and then the Pythagorean tradition, which symbolized the serpent or the speaker of the serpent, which was this two different traditions given to man, one by non-human looking angels, and then the other tradition was conveyed by human looking angels. And there's this partition between this priesthood to represent these two very distinct traditions. So in the Hebrew, therefore, sifra, numeral, and seraph is really recording the Pythagorean cult of numbers, and it appears within the arcane teaching. Now, numismatology, it refers specifically to the study and the categorization of the opening wheels. So this is really when we begin to deconstruct the symbolism, this is where the study leads us to. So we said before that the coin is another word for a measurement of different weights, and these weights were identified with different prices or different coins, and these weights were also identified with different types of opening wheels. So therefore we can say that the coin, it's elliptical, and in the ancient world it was used to represent both the opening wheels or a shield or a votive dish, and it therefore specified a contract through civil authorities. And the governments, as we said before, the government was mapped out as the ship of state. Therefore, gubernatio is to navigate a vessel. The vessel in this respect is the government, which is anchored or moored to heaven, which has these celestial connotations, which are represented as circular, but this also feeds into the symbology of the opening wheels as well and the angelic vessels. Now, I made reference in my previous video to extraterrestrial controlled governments, and I think it's probably useful here to revise what we mean by the extraterrestrial controlled governments. But essentially, the extraterrestrial controlled government was the ship of state, and this is the interaction between angels and men. Now, this was symbolized religiously through a covenant. So therefore, within the Bible, Abraham makes a covenant with the Elohim. So there is therefore this relationship between the government and the enactment of law, or the enactment of the Elohim and their laws, and the mirror image between the ship of state and the laws of the Elohim. Now, we find references to money being a representation of the opening wheels, and also of the flying shields as well within Greek symbolism. So, for example, if we looked at at the £2 coin, a very recent £2 coin showed cogs on the image of the £2 coin. Now, the cog is another depiction of the opening wheels, because it was said that the opening wheels were created or made through intersecting cogs, and so therefore the wheels are often shown in Judaic traditions as intersecting, as these interlinking circles, but originally they were thought to be cogs, and that the angelic vessels were put together as a series of cog shafts. Now, in the currency throughout the world, the coin, therefore, it often has a serrated edge, and again this is representational of the cogs, which is another covert reference to the opening wheels. Now, it's a construction, the cog therefore is a construction which is associated material with the opening wheels. Now, it's cryptological, and therefore it's encoding a truth, and the theme of the wheel is found displayed prominently, as I mentioned just earlier, on the £2 coin, and it's combined also with the quotation from Sir Isaac Newton's famous words, "standing on the shoulders of giants." Now, the giants is an allusion to the Nephilim. The word Nephilim means giants, and if you haven't seen my video on the Nephilim, then I recommend that you go back and watch the video on the Nephilim. And again, this is because the Nephilim are associated with occult scientific knowledge. This is knowledge which was given to man. So the fallen angels gave mankind knowledge, and this is going back in both in the ancient world, but also into the modern world as well. So, to summarise, we can say that within the ancient world there are various types of opening wheels, and they're enumerated according to different weights or coins. These are conversions which are employed as elliptical signifiers of angelic vessels. So in other words, the coin is circular, and it's circular for a purpose because it's denoting this angelic vessel which was represented as a shield or a wheel, as a wheel. Now, they're also exotheological, so they represent this contract between heaven and earth, the covenant between man and God. In other words, as we said before, we had this relationship between Numus, which is a coin, and Numen, which was a deity. So there is this rate of exchange religiously, which denotes redemption. Again, the word redemption, demier, which is to redeem, or is to literally to buy back. So you would make a sacrifice, and that would be to purchase redemption in order to remove or expiate sin. So it's appropriation which is identified with a sacrificial platter. And as we've said before, the sacrificial platter was made in a circle, or was a vessel, and it had in the middle a little bobble, and this bobble was used to represent the axle and the wheel. So again, the votive dish is making an allusion back to the opening wheels, and the opening wheels are correlated with sacrifice. So again, we find this connotation within the English language. We would say a flying saucer. Now, the reason why we say flying saucer is because in the Roman and in the Semitic world, within the saucer cults, they were using saucers as a representation of these angelic vessels, and so we find that language encoded within the modern word flying saucer. So the saucer is a codification of the angels and their carriers, their vessels. It's a private discourse, and the coin signifies a round angelic vessel. As I said before, it's pictured variously as an opening wheel, which is another word for a flying saucer, which in doublespeak was an oblation receptacle, a votive dish, a vessel which was used to make a sacrifice, and this was equated with the gods. Okay, it's quite complicated, the symbolism of numismatology, but it is very important for understanding how they represented the opening wheels and the symbolism behind the opening wheels. It gives us a key to understanding how they differentiated different weights, and these weights were used to represent different types of angelic vehicles. Okay, thank you for listening. Please pass my videos around. If you like this video, then please give me a thumbs up, please subscribe, and let's try and make this a better world. Thank you very much. This is Pierre Sabac.